we're on the new story form, and we want to make this functional so that when you're typing something in here, last night it was scary, and click on create a story, we'll actually create a record in the database. So we'll start off right here. It says that we don't have a create action in our stories controller. Go into our stories controller, create a new method called create, and say add story equals story.new story params. And we haven't created this method yet, but let's put it as a private method. And call it story params. Story params. Params.require story permit body, and what else do we have in here? Body. For now, we can just do body. So we're using what Rails calls strong parameters, so people can't just inject whatever they want in our form here, and that they can only submit for this body column here. And we haven't finished the create action yet. Say add story save. If add story save, redirect to add story. Else we'll say flash danger equals add story dot errors full messages to sentence, and we'll render back to the new form. So essentially, if these parameters are met and the story is able to be saved, it'll redirect you to back to where the story is, or it'll redirect you and show you that story. Otherwise, if not, it'll give you a flash message with why it wasn't able to save, and then it'll return you back to the new form or the new page. So let's go back here and just to create a story, and now it's telling us that we don't have a show action, and that's because it's saved and it's trying to redirect us to add story and show us the story that we've just created, but there is no way for us to see that. So we have to create another method of show, and for the story it'll equal story dot params find params id. And what's happening here is we're setting a variable to say for the story, go and find it by the ID that we're passing in, and the ID that we're passing in here is 1. So this is the very first story that we've created, and the ID of that is 1. Go and find the story with the ID of 1. Do refresh, and it should tell us that we don't have a template, which is what we see here. So go into our views, stories, and then create a show html.arb. Do refresh, and there you have it. We don't see anything here yet because we have a blank file here, but now it's showing us this story. And let's go in and show us the story here, or so that we can see the story. And I'm trying to figure out first, do we let's add in a div here and say class equals container, class equals row. We'll give it an HR here, div code, and class equals row here. Before I even start doing all of this, let's just see what this looks like. So I want to show us, or I want to show the body of that story for sure, at the very least. So what I want to do Let's do add story.body. Do a refresh, and there you have it. Last night it was scary. So this is the body of the story that we've just created. We can pretty this up later, and we will pretty it up later, but for right now, this is exactly what we want to see. And if we go back to our root page, our home page, by clicking on Scare Me, and that doesn't do anything, so let's go into our header and make sure that this is actually working how we want it to work. And turn this into a link. So we can say link to Scare Me. It goes to the root path. Class is going to be navbar brand. Get rid of that. Do a refresh. Now if we click on it, it should take us to the root path, which it does. Fantastic. Let's test this again. So submit your story. This morning it was cold when I went running. Create a story. This morning it was cold when I went running, and the ID changed. Great. So that worked for us. So we're now able to create a story. This is very minimal. We haven't added categories yet. We haven't associated a user to a story just yet. But at this point, I'm perfectly fine. We're given the ability to create a story. So now in the next lesson, here on the home page, we'll replace all of this hard-coded data right here with the stories that we've actually created.